So let's begin adding some gems to our application, and we can find gems on by going to rubygems.org. The best part about gems is that you can get a lot of functionality by simply adding these gems to your application instead of creating all the functionality from scratch on your own. So we'll be adding Haml. We'll be adding a Haml, which will help us embed Ruby into our application. It's much better than ERB. A simple form, which is, as the name suggests, a form which we will use to create the files and edit them as well. And then we'll have devise, which is what we'll use for our users. So to add all these to our application, let's actually just quickly copy this to the clipboard. Let's go into our gem file, which is at the very bottom here. I've gone ahead and selected all the comments, which I'll be deleting. And the way I selected lots of rows here is by holding the command key. In Sublime Text, they allow multi-select or multi-click. So let's hold Command Shift and then the right key to select everything and delete it. And then right at the bottom here, I will paste in devise. Let's go back and get the other gems. Let's do the same for simple form. Let's paste it in at the bottom here. And the last one will be Haml. So let's do Haml as well. Let's copy this, go back into Sublime Text and paste it in. I'm going to use slightly older versions of these gems, or at least different versions. So we'll use 4.0.5 for Haml. For simple form, we'll use 3.0.2. And then for devise, we'll actually use 3.4.1. So let's delete that. And let's see, everything looks good. So let's save this. Let's go back into our terminal now. We run bundle install to fetch all the gems from rubygems.org for us. When it's successfully the bundle is complete, you can go back to the other tab, restart the server. Let's run Rails server again. This is good practice whenever you add a gem to your application. And then let's actually begin using Haml now. We can go to Sublime Text. If you remember, we had index.html.erb, which was created earlier when we generated the controller for our welcome, or the welcome controller. So let's rename this to index.html.haml. And if you don't have Haml syntax highlighting at the bottom right here, which I don't as well, you can hold Command Shift P, and if you type in Haml this way, you will get the syntax highlighting. Let's delete all of this. And then let's just say, let's create new placeholder text. Voila. This is the placeholder. Let's save this. Let's go back into our browser. Let's refresh. You'll see the new placeholder that we just created. Awesome. So Haml's working. Let's just go back into our terminal. Let's clean this up. Git status. There's just a few that we changed here. Git add all. Git commit with the message add Haml, devise, simple form, and change index view. So perfect, that's good. Now we want to add a model to our application. The model in our application, those are the objects, essentially the things that we'll be manipulating. In our case, it will be the documents, and it will also be users. A user will have documents that are only visible to that user. So as you may have remembered, we did not create a model for our welcome controller because it's just a static page. We're not going to be manipulating it in our application. So let's create the model, which we use the command Rails generate the model, and then the name of the model. In our case, we'll use doc, short for document, so DOC, and then we'll add a title, which will be a string, and we'll also have content, that's text. And because titles are shorter, we can use strings. Text is for longer bodies of content. And this command creates the migration file for us, which I'll show you. And also the doc.rb model. We'll be working with this quite a bit. So let's actually run rake db migrate. And before we do that, actually, let's quickly jump into Sublime Text. And let me show you that migration file. This is the table, essentially, that was created. It's the docs table. It has a title that's a string and content that's text. You also get the timestamps as well for that, essentially for free without running a command. If you notice here, there is no schema.rb file. The schema.rb is a snapshot of the database at any one point. To generate a schema.rb file, at least at the beginning, we need to run that rakedb dbmigrate command. This pushes all the changes we just made to the database, and then it creates the schema.rb file for us. As you can see now, it's there. This is our database, a snapshot of our database right now. We actually will never want to touch the schema directly. If you want to change the database, you use migrations. We'll be using that later on as we add different columns to different tables. So let's go back into our terminal at this point. Let's just do git status, git add, git commit with the message, say doc model. Perfect. Let's clean this up. Now let's create the controller for that model. It will be Rails generate controller, and it will be docs, the name of our controller. This creates the view directory for us. It does not create the view file. We need to do that ourselves. And actually, if we go into our Sublime text, we can actually even begin working on the routes for this. So let's close this out. Let's close out this as well. Let's minimize that to reduce confusion. And then if we go to routes, we can now add the resources. So this will create all the routes for the different actions that we'll be adding to our application. So resources, and this will be docs. So let's save this. Let's go back into our terminal and run rake routes. This gives us a list of all the routes that have been created for our application. You'll see the ones that were created earlier, which was the welcome index. But now we also created the new, the edit, the show, index, and things of that nature that we'll be working on. We can actually begin creating the actions. So we have the controller, which is docs. We need to create these actions right here. So index, create, new, edit, show, update, destroy. So let's go into our Sublime text. Let's close this out. And in the controllers, which the docs controller is what we just created, the welcome controller we created earlier, application controller is always there when you create a Rails application. So let's do def index. Let's do def show. Let's do def new. Let's do def create. Let's do def edit. Let's do def update. Let's do def destroy. And at the bottom here, we'll create private methods. And I'll explain exactly what these are as well. So let's do def find doc. And let's also add def doc params. So it'll be doc params. And so we'll be filling these out obviously throughout the duration of our tutorial. But let's just save this. The index will be for our index view. The show will create our show view. The new will also be for our new view. But to actually create something, we need to use the create method. The create method does not have a view itself. The same applies to the update. Update does not have a view itself. It just it makes changes to the database using the edit view. So when you make a change, the update action is responsible for those changes. And then destroy is obviously deleting the documents that we create. And then these private methods here apply to this controller, to this page. It helps us with reducing redundancy. So you don't want code that shows up on multiple places. You can just create private methods for those and then apply them in the rest of the methods. So let's go back into our terminal and let's clean this up. Git status, git add, git commit with the message, let's say doc controller and routes. Perfect.